What is the worst factor that can be used to determine a team's worthiness to make the playoffs? We're going to talk about that today. And spoiler alert, the NAIA is getting rid of it for the fall of 2025. And I'm kind of happy about that. The NAIA released information a few months back, and I was in the hospital when it was published. And by the time I got out and started making videos again, it was full swing for the football season in 2024. We decided we'd rather talk about the games that are on the field and not talk about 2025 until after a champion was crowned in 2024. By the way, shout out to Grandview, the Vikings, the 2024 national champions in football for the NAIA. A fantastic season for Coach Woodley and his squad. That having been said, though, there are a couple of things at which I get to sit here today and say the NAIA got it right. That's the second time in about a 60-day period in which I've come out here on the channel and said, you know what? The NAIA got it right. And there are two things we're going to talk about that in line with the NAIA getting it right today. The most important one, we'll save that just a little bit later. In the meantime, I may have to retire one of my statements. Rankings, not ratings. I say that here on the channel often, and I do that to tease the NAI. Now, I feel very comfortable in saying that because it's right. They are rankings, not ratings. If you want to talk about the difference, I have a video, rankings versus ratings, in which we discuss that. The link will be in the description. However, the NAI is making some changes that open things up to be able to call these things what they are. It's a poll. They're rankings. Coaches, and by the way, let's read it here from the NAIA website. Football will move to coaches polls in 2025 for the fall of 2025. The coaches have been being polled anyway. It's been a poll. Coaches write down 1 through 25 as to what they think are the ranked order of the teams. They're not rating the teams. They weren't rating the teams. They were ranking the teams and submitting that. They're going to be doing that some more. However, it's going to be called a poll in 2025. And each conference, the NAI goes on to say further, will have a voter, not a rater, a voter, because it is a poll. Now, Joey, these things are just semantics. It's just terminology. You're right. It is just terminology. But I believe that words are important. Words are powerful, and you should use the right words at the right time in the right situations. And in this case, the right words are rankings. The right words are polls. And also, this lines up for the NAI with other sports in which they talk about on their own website that have coaches polls and coaches rankings. Not all of them say that, but a number of them do. The more important factor here, though, is the criterion that is being removed from the consideration for the National Selection Committee for the playoff field. And let's talk about that right now. Ratings or rankings, as the case may be, will be removed from the selection criteria in the 2025-2026 season. No longer will whether or not you're ranked in the top 25 be a factor, and a big factor, and a determining factor as to whether or not your team will get to make the playoffs. Now, for the last 2 years, it's been a 20-team field, and conference champions and division champions were able to earn an automatic bid by winning their conference, winning their division. And it didn't matter whether or not the team was ranked in the top 25. If you simply won your conference or won your division, you would receive an automatic bid. At-large bids had to fall into teams that were placed in the top 25 in the final regular season poll. Now, you go back to prior to 2 years ago when it was simply a 16-team field, even conference champions had to be ranked in the top 20 in order to be in consideration. And it didn't matter. High seed, low seed, none of that stuff mattered. You had to be in the top 20 even to be considered to be in the field, whether or not you won your conference. And there were teams in the past that won a conference, that won a division, that were not ranked in the top 20 and did not make the field. And that's just a poor piece of criteria. It really is. And the NAI is doing the right thing here in getting rid of that for the fall of 2025. Look right here. Each conference will be represented by a voter, by the way, not a raider, a voter, and polls will not be used as criterion by the National Selection Committee. That's important. It's important for many, many reasons. And it was a weight that was placed too highly on what a person or a group of people thought about a team as opposed to what the team actually achieved on the field. And there are so many other criteria that the National Selection Committee has with which they can use as opposed to what a group of people think. You can talk about wins and losses, which, by the way, that has to be the most important one, wins and losses. And I realize strength of schedule is important as well. That's a piece of criteria that you can use. How about wins against top 10 teams and top 25 teams? I didn't say rankings weren't important. I said they should not be used as a criteria as the little number out beside a team's name. Did wins against those teams happen over the course of the season? Yes. Top 10 teams, top 25 teams at the time, whatever that was. Margin of victory, strength of schedule, wins when you're determining which of two teams or three teams or four teams should go, wins against common opponents, not simply what a group of people thought about your team. And they may not have had a chance to see your team over the course of the year as much. So they really may not have had, the strongest of information to be able to put forward. This is a big deal. It also helps in optics. And I believe this very strongly. This is going to help optics a lot for the NAI because sometimes pollsters can put together formally or informally a good old boys club. And pollsters can formally or informally decide that one team should be in the playoffs and so rank that team higher. Pollsters could formally or informally, and very, very strongly it would be informally, I'm sure in this case, determine that a team they didn't want to be in the playoffs and could work it around where that team is not ranked where it should be and therefore out of the playoffs. Not that I'm saying that impropriety like that has ever happened in this situation, but to remove this criterion from the group with which the selection committee has to work helps a lot with optics. And it keeps that from being something where you could simply say, well, the coaches didn't want that team in there. And so that's why they voted against it. I'm not saying that's ever happened, but I am saying this keeps that from happening in the future. And so the NAI definitely got it right there in eliminating that from the criteria for the National Selection Committee. And by the way, the National Selection Committee did a fantastic job in 2024. It was a great playoff field. It was a great playoff championship series. And I think that the champion who was crowned ultimately a fantastic season for Grandview. By the way, Grandview and Kaiser making it back to the championship game once again, third season in a row. Congratulations to them. Congratulations on the National Selection Committee on a job well done. And props to the NAI for rankings and calling them what they are and for getting rid of the worst criterion with which the selection committee had to deal. Props to the NAI. You got it right. Thanks for watching Midwest Sports Net. We talk about small college sports and more throughout the Midwest and beyond. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so now. And if you have, well, tell a friend and let them subscribe to the channel too. God bless you. Have a great day.